I can't believe it's been 6 months since I was last allowed to work in court. And now here I am, back at the Old Bailey. Ah, Mr. Naruto. Good morning, Professor Harebrane. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. The atmospheric pressure in here is off the charts. I've never felt anything like it. It's crushing me. I feel it every time I'm here. That gravity. Well, this is Britain's highest court. But are you telling me it's fitted with some kind of device that can actually control air pressure? No. I think it's probably all in the mind. Ah, yes, well, you won't let me down, will you, Mr. Naruto? I'm counting on you in today's trial to save my life! To save the secret of my super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine from being made public! Yes, I understand. I know what I have to do. I have to establish that the explosion 2 days ago was nothing more than an unfortunate accident. Well, I'm sure there's nothing to worry about, really. Justice will prevail. My commiseration, Mr. Naruto. You appear to have been lumbered with the most tiresome case here. Ah! Mr. Sholmes! I didn't expect to see you here. That was very mean, Runo, leaving me alone at home with Hurley. It took me at least an hour to rake him. Ah! Oh! Ah! Is it? Are you? Sherlock Sholmes? Indeed, sir. I am he. Sherlock Sholmes! Oh! I've heard all about your exploits, even whilst living in Germany. Ah yes, Rant's magazine is on sale in Germany, too. This month's installment was sublime. Your deduction in the adventure of the Silver Blaze was wonderful. Ah yes, a memorable case indeed. It concerned a snake, I seem to recall. No, that was the Speckled Band. Well, thank you for coming. I do appreciate your support. I'm sorry to disappoint you, my dear fellow, but I'm afraid I can't stay. Oh. I've urgent business at Madame Tuspel's. You mean your waxwork job? No, the waxwork abduction, of course. Madame has engaged my services. Ah, so you're trying to get to the bottom of that ransom now, are you? The week's wages depend on it, as does the safe return of the waxwork, naturally. As such, I intend to give it my undivided attention. Oh, well, never mind then, I understand. Of course, with my skills of observation and reasoning, resolving the matter will be as easy as proverbial pie. I shall return forthwith. For until I solve the case, I shall have no money to afford a pie of any description. Ooh, then you must absolutely give it your full attention, Hurley. Quite, Iris, quite. But life is riddled with irony, you know? Whenever I give something my full attention, I have quite insatiable desire for a pie. What? One of the universe's intractable mysteries, you might say. Oh yes, quite, definitely, absolutely, I totally understand. Is someone a little starstruck? I wish you the very best of luck, Professor Harebrane. Oh, why thank you. Before I depart, Mr. Naruto, a word in your ear, if you please. What's this about? As you have remarkably little grounding in science, I feel I ought to inform you. As compelling as this super high voltage instantaneous kinesis hypothesis may be, a practical implementation, such as was attempted by the professor at the Great Exhibition, is quite impossible. But the professor said the demonstration was a success. Yes, it would appear that he fervently believes it was. I've read Professor Bunnybrain's paper about it too, Runo, and I have to say, I'm sure it can't be done. It could barely be done theoretically, let alone practically. So he's completely barking up the wrong tree? But how could an experiment that had no possibility of succeeding in fact succeed? That's contradictory. And it's that contradiction that will be the heart of the trial, I have no doubt. What's that supposed to mean? Now, I must hurry along. I wish you the best of luck, my dear fellow. See you later, Hurley! Well, it looks like you're on your own today, Bruno. But chin up, you can do it. Oh, what about you, Iris? No, I'm afraid I can't help. I have something I need to do. I see. It's going to be a big surprise for you when you find out what it is. That sounds ominous. Counterfeit defense and defendant! At least I'm pretty sure that's who you are. We have no eyes. Court is about to be in session. Make your way to the courtroom at once. We're on our way. An experiment that the laws of science say can't possibly succeed. And a scientist who's convinced that it did. That's the riddle you have to unlock here, Ryunosuke. That's the key to this case. Now, of course, this trial is going to be interesting because, like, the dynamic between myself and Van Zieks has changed since previous trials. This is the first trial that we've done where, like, now we kind of have at least his respect and not his blatant racism. So I'm very curious to see how the back and forth is going to go. Okay, good. At least we have a new jury this time. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. We are sitting today for the public trial of Professor Albert Harebrane. I now call upon the counsel for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is ready. The defense is ready, my lord. I'm 6 months out of practice, and what's more... without Suzato-san today. Is it just my imagination, or does the air in here feel even more oppressive than usual? So, I must say I recollect the victim of this case all too well, Mr. Odie Asman. Mr. Asman was well known as a financier, though that was merely a front for his diverse criminal activities. It was only a month ago that the man appeared in court prosecuted by Lord Van Zieks. But the jury unanimously found him not guilty. Because every member of the jury had been bribed by the sound of it. These powerful London criminals are prepared to go to extreme lengths to keep their freedom. But 2 days ago, on the 21st October, Mr. Asman met his end. The work of the Reaper, was it? If that is how your lordship would describe divine retribution. But the fact remains Mr. Asman's death was a direct result of the actions of the accused, Professor Harebrane. Very well then. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have been selected at random to represent the will of the people. Are the 6 of you ready to fulfill your societal duty? I'm most gratified to have been selected to carry out this important civic duty, my lord. To have a man's fate in the palm of one's hand? Oh gosh, oh golly, sent shivers down my spine. Science experiments, magic, conjuring tricks, courtroom trials are all nothing more than performances. You look so suspicious. Any spirituous scholar that defiles the reputation of science deserves to hang. We have to listen to what's said on both sides of the fence, and that settles on one. That's it, isn't it? How old are you? Wasn't like this in my day. Wasn't like this at all. Please put your gun away. That's That's the police killer Automole look-alike. Again. And he's as exhausted as ever, it seems. Now, as I'm sure you're all aware, the incident we are here to judge today tragically took place at the Great Exhibition, shortly after its opening. Though the death toll could have been far worse, with the exception of the victim, no one was killed. Nevertheless, the dream of science being exhibited rapidly turned to a nightmare for the spectators. A tragic turn of events, and as such, the eyes of all London, no, but the whole world will be on this trial. It is our duty to reach a swift and just conclusion, I feel. So, your opening statement, please, Lord Van Zieks. At the heart of this incident is technology never before demonstrated anywhere in the world. One of science's latest developments, I take it. The government is keen to capitalize on the Great Exhibition to improve Britain's technological advantage. The technology being demonstrated by the accused was described as super high voltage instantaneous kinesis. Good lord! It's designed to disassemble human subjects using extremely high voltage electricity and beam them instantly to another location where they are subsequently reassembled. Is such a thing within the realms of possibility? Well, I don't believe it. That's for sure. Disassembling people with electricity? My goodness, how shocking. Get it? Ha! The whole idea is absurd. The hypothesis would never stand up to scrutiny. Sir, I believe you are a fellow of the Royal Society, are you not? An expert in your field? I am, and my word on the matter can be considered final. Instantaneous kinesis is poppycock. So this expert and Mr. Sholmes are in agreement. It's impossible. What is the prosecution's view on the matter? The prosecution would assert that the accused instantaneous kinesis demonstration was a success. What? What? What rot? Are you kidding me? Order! Order! The professor's hypothesis is currently under investigation by the British government. If it is deemed to have merit, a substantial research grant would have been made available. The accused made use of the invention built on his new hypothesis to take Mr. Aspen's life, in order to be the sole benefactor of the grant. But... This disastrous demonstration was no accident. It was carefully designed from the outset to end the life of the victim. Thank you, Lord Van Zieks. The prosecution's stance is clear. But you will now bring forth witnesses to substantiate your claims. Gladly, my lord. Right off the bat, dude. Bailiff, show the first witnesses to the stand. Witnesses, state your names and occupations for the court. Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector of Scotland Yard's Homicide Division. I was on duty at the demonstration on the day in question and in charge of the following investigation. Albert Harebrane, scientist. You were born in England, but have been carrying out research in Germany in recent years, correct? Yes, that's right. After graduating from university here in Britain, I went to work in Germany and made an amazing discovery. Which is what brought me back. I had to demonstrate my incredible hypothesis at the Great Exhibition. What you demonstrated was incredible, alright? An incredible explosion. But the science was a success! The instantaneous kinesis worked! Everyone saw it! They must have done! Yes, there was a terrible accident, but... The demonstration of my hypothesis was a success! Well, that much is undeniable, as shown in this photograph taken by a forensic investigation team. This was taken inside the Crystal Tower, I take it? The centerpiece of the exhibition, no less. That's right, my lord. Seems the victim rammed straight into it. I see. Very well, submit the photograph as evidence. Photograph of the victim. The photographic print of the victim taken after he had ostensibly been beamed to the Crystal Tower. It shows an apparent stab wound to the chest. As the courts heard, the victim of the incident was Mr. Odie Asman. There have been a number of allegations made against the man, but putting them aside for the time being, he was the man who financed the research for the experiment and the demonstration itself. I see. So to summarize the situation, the defendant is accused of taking the life of the man who funded his work. Would that be correct? Exactly. But couldn't it be that the explosion was caused by some malfunction in the apparatus used for the demonstration? That's right! That must be it! My splendid machine! My poor splendid machine! You saw it yesterday, didn't you? No. We can't even examine the wreckage thanks to the Special Disposition for Scientific Equipment Act. What? The wreckage? The wreckage? But that being the case, how can the facts be established? How can it possibly be determined whether this was an accident or a deliberate and malicious act? Extremely simply, my lord. I beg your pardon? Isn't that right, witness? What? Sorry? Me? No, your neighbor. Yes, sir. It was murder, plain and simple. Anyone could state that with complete certainty. What? How can he possibly think that? Thank you, Inspector. I think we had better proceed to formal testimony. You will explain to the court on what grounds you claim this experiment to have been a front for murder. The corpse that went crashing through the Crystal Tower had a broken neck. I made a minor miscalculation of the angle of the beam projection. That's all. That was my mistake. But the post-mortem examination revealed another injury, a fatal wound. There was a lesion in his chest where clearly been stabbed by something sharp right through in the heart. So the victim was killed before he went anywhere, and this fellow is the only one who could have done it. Extraordinary business. In addition to suffering a broken neck, the victim was stabbed in the heart? Information I would really like to have heard from someone other than the judge. The coroner says death would have been all but instant from a wound like that. You could say, in fact, that the victim was killed twice by the accused. No, that couldn't be further from the truth. I have here the experiment plan document that was submitted to the security team. The victim stood himself inside something called the bird cage, ready to be beamed instantly. To the second level of the Crystal Tower, about 25 yards away. The experiment did not go according to plan, however. As the machine was put into operation, there was a large explosion. That blast caused the beam transmitter to point higher than intended. Accordingly, the kinesis resulted in the birdcage materializing in mid-air, from where it subsequently fell, crashing through the glass of the Crystal Tower's large round window. My word, one assumes the victim's neck was broken upon impact with the tower then. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. The machine was just too powerful. But honestly, really, I swear, it was just an accident. A terrible accident. Unfortunately, that excuse can't save you. No, not considering the sharp murder weapon that pierced the victim's heart. Murder weapon? What are you saying? This is the autopsy report submitted by the coroner. Ah, there you are. The prosecution would like it entered to the court record. Your request is granted, counsel. Autopsy report. The autopsy report for the victim, Mr. Asman. His neck was broken from the impact of a violent fall, and he was stabbed in the chest with a sharp object. I was there in person, you know. I saw the whole ludicrous performance. And the only other person on stage, Mr. Asman, was a disgraceful excuse for a scientist. Then really, by all accounts, it must have been him. Hard to think otherwise, really. Very well, counsel for the defense. Proceed with the cross-examination, please. Oh, yes, my lord. I need to focus here. It's been a while. Now we are truly, properly back in the saddle. Okay, so as usual, we're just gonna start by pressing all the statements and seeing if we can't glean any more information or get some new evidence.
Hold it!
Are you suggesting that's because he fell from a considerable height? Exactly, which highlights something else about this whole rum business. What's that? The fact that the instantaneous kinesis itself was a success. What? After the explosion, the cage with the fellow inside suddenly appeared out of nowhere, mid-air. So although the experiment ended in disaster, the so-called instantaneous kinesis did actually occur. Remind us, Professor, what was the cause of the fatal disaster?
Hold it!
So the angle of the projection is critical, is it? And you calculate yourself, personally? Absolutely. The calculation is far too complicated for anyone but me to carry out. Only you got it wrong, didn't you? Yes! That's right! That's the point! The calculation is so complicated, even I can make a mistake! Do people fall for that brazen confidence? I should try it. I took into account the subject's height and weight, the wind direction, and the ambient temperature. I considered every possible variable. I just don't understand how this could have happened. Obviously then, you had to include the weight of the clothes Mr. Asman was wearing at the time, I suppose. Ah. Crackling comments! The answer should have been 3! So much for safety first. The 3 must be for safety third.
Hold it!
Let's see this one. Another fatal injury, you say? That doesn't make any sense. I didn't think I'd have to spell this out, but here we go. Just because there were 2 fatal wounds doesn't mean I'm saying the victim had 2 lives to lose, does it? Too right. Obviously, at first, we thought the bloke had died due to his spine snapping in half as well. But you're saying that's not the case? You'll get your answer once I finish my fish and chips. We don't keep butting in every few seconds. But we all know that's a bottomless bag. Wait, is it actually bottomless? The victim plummeted 30 feet into a glass tower. It would be reasonable to assume that is the cause of death. Right, that's what we all thought. But it was a red herring, wasn't it? So let's check this. The defense knew nothing of this crucial information. The prosecution received this report from the forensic investigation team only this morning. This was the first we knew of it as well. I can only apologize for the impossibility of informing the defense. Okay, this is weird. Normally he would be like all in my face, like, oh, my Lord Nipponi's friend, you should have known this sooner. I was just like, this is weird. Sarcastic and insincere? Thanks. So, what was the nature of the sharp object? Among the accused tools that were in use at the demonstration, one is of particular interest. This. Yes, that would appear to be some kind of screwdriver, wouldn't it? Ah! There, he is! My trusty little companion, Andrew! Andrew, of course. Do you know each other already? He's one of my dear friends, like all my tools. I've named them all, you know. We're one big happy family. Ugh. Andrew is my flat-headed screwdriver, of course. His brother, Michael, is a crosshead. Well, it would appear that your beloved Andrew has a red stain on his shank. Ah! That isn't... It's blood, beyond all reasonable doubt. No! And that's not all. The long, sharp shape of this Andrew fellow is completely consistent with the victim's wound. What? What? Order! Order! The court will enter this friend of the defendant as evidence. Alright, the screwdriver. Professor Harebrane's trusty screwdriver that he named Andrew. There are traces of blood at the tip and it matches the shape of the victim's wound. So one of the Professor Harebrane's tools is the murder weapon. Great! Okay. Now let's go ahead and press this one and see where this takes us. What grounds do you have for saying that? Ha! Do you really think you need to ask? There were only two people on that public experimentation stage, in front of the whole world. The victim, Mr. Odiasman, and the accused, Professor Harebrane. And we know for certain that before the experiment, the victim was alive. That's right! I saw it with my own eyes! Furthermore, following the explosion and kinesis, nobody went anywhere near the body. In other words, only someone else on stage with the victim could possibly have done it. Hello?
Excuse me!
Professor Harebrane, do you have some information that may be relevant here? Professor! Ah! Sorry! I was just calculating the optimum coefficient of electricity to separate molecules in the human body. And the witness stand is the best place for that. It seemed as though you might have something to say about Inspector Gregson's last remark. Yes, that's right, of course! He just said that nobody else could have done it, didn't he? Yeah, that's right. Who else could have stabbed the victim, eh? I don't know, but there's no way I could possibly have stabbed Mr. Aspen as you say. Eh? Explain, please, Professor. Of course, this cold-hearted policeman may not be aware, I suppose. But humans are warm-blooded mammals with blood running continuously through their veins. I had heard that surely you see. If I plunged something in the size of Andrew the man's chest, the whole stage would have been a bloodbath. No, a blood swimming pool. Ah. But thousands of learners were watching me at the time. And yet, not one of them claims to have seen a swimming pool of blood. Well, no, I suppose not. You see? Not one! True, I didn't see anything like that. Is it really the time and place to be doing that? Well done, Professor. That was a great counter-argument. Order! Order! it begins. Pray forget the discourtesy if I savor a drop from my hallowed chalice to accompany my old friends adducting. Or adducing? Addising. I don't know. English is hard. Here's to you, Albert. Oh, you're too kind, Barrett, but I'm really not a patch on you. No, you're not. No? You've neglected to mention one crucial possibility. I have? A particular situation in which very little bleeding would result from a stab wound. Ah, of course! Inspector, enlighten the court, please. Yes, sir. Where are they going with this? Very well. You will amend your formal testimony now, Inspector Gregson. The weapon the victim was stabbed must have been left in his body whilst he was beamed through the air. Okay, so we need to examine the screwdriver properly before we do anything else. This is blood. Mr. Asmund's, no doubt. This is the problem with looking at murder weapons. I've seen this unusually shaped handle before. It's the same screwdriver that was lodged in the grill on the floor of the kinesis machine, which could be important information, so I should definitely make a note of it. Ah, it was at the machine. We've established that, and now we can present it.
Objection.
You say that while the weapon remains in the body, there's very little bleeding. Is that unequivocal? Look, there was no blood in the experimentation stage, even though that's where the fellow was stabbed. The only explanation for that is if the screwdriver was still in his body, stopping any heavy bleeding. It's common medical knowledge, my lord friend, even on your side of the world. Yes, but about this screwdriver. The thing is, we actually saw it at the scene ourselves, on the experimentation stage. What? It was on the floor by the wreckage of the machine, poking through a metal grill. I went to pick it up, but the detective here stopped me. Isn't that right, Inspector Gregson? Ah, well, now you come to mention it, yes. Inspector, are we to understand that you permitted the defense counsel to investigate? That you contravened the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act? No, not at all. I wouldn't do that. I just let him look, nothing more. I was very clear he wasn't to touch a thing. Yes, that's true. This screwdriver was in plain sight on the stage. But it shouldn't have been, should it? What are you getting at? If this tool had still been in the victim's body when the victim was beamed away by the machine, then it shouldn't have still been on the stage. Ah! That's right. It should have been beamed across the Crystal Tower along with Mr. Asmund, and been found still lodged in the victim's chest. Ah! Order! Order! How do you explain this, Inspector? I don't... It looks as though everything that the victim had on his person moved with him when he was beamed. If the screwdriver was still in his chest when the instantaneous kinesis occurred, obviously that should have been beamed to the destination as well. This is a strange situation. Even though people are saying that this instantaneous kinesis is a scientific impossibility, we're still basing arguments on the assumption that it did actually take place. Alright, time to tighten the screws here. My lord, if the prosecution is unable to explain this inconsistency in its argument, we can only conclude that this testimony given in support cannot be relied upon. Lord Van Seeks is stumped.
Hold it!
What? Do you have something to say, witness? Yes, I knew it. It bears out. The equations hold. Mr. Naruto, don't worry! About what? Without delving into the details, there is no inconsistency. What? Even if Andrew hadn't launched Mr. Asmon's chest, my trusty tool wouldn't have moved. Andrew remaining on stage is consistent with my calculations. You Harebrane. God, you're such an idiot! We stumped the prosecution one time! God, you're stupid! What? What? So stupid! Even Van Zinks is done with this stupidity. It seems your illusions have been shattered. Clearly, we should hear the accused's explanation. Or should I say, this brilliant scientist's explanation? Just when I found an inconsistency in the prosecution's argument. Scientists. Very well, the defendant will testify again. Provide us with a scientific explanation as to why the inconsistency asserted by the defense fails to hold. In the name of Apollo, I will, my lord. To be clear, I'm still at the stage of gathering data in my research. My hypothesis states that the kinesis cannot transport metal, though. Hence, the metal weapon would have stayed put. In other words, the point just raised by Mr. Naruto isn't an inconsistency at all. Mr. Asmon was a patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible. Now I have a duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together. So, the thrust of your testimony, Professor, is that based upon his hypothesis, metal objects cannot be moved by this method of instantaneous kinesis. In other words, since the screwdriver is made of metal, even if it remained lodged in the victim's chest, its subsequent discovery on the stage, despite the victim being found elsewhere, is not an inconsistency. And therefore, Professor Albert Harebrane could still have been the killer. My Great Ace hypothesis holds, you see? Yeah, your great hypothesis. Go directly to jail. We had to make the cage used to contain the subject from wood for that very reason. I was not addressing you, witness. Professor Harebrane. Yes? Whose side are you on here? I don't take sides, Mr. Naruto. No. My only interest lies in upholding my hypothesis. I'm a scientist, after all. Is he working for us or against us? It's very hard to tell. Let's see how you cross-examine this testimony, my Nipponese friend. Yes, fire away, Mr. Naruto. Okay, there was one thing that was kind of bothering me. Okay, my hypothesis states that kinesis cannot transfer metal, though, hence the metal weapon would have stayed put. Yeah, so, like, there's metal here, right? So how did this not get... Why did this get transported?
Objection!
Professor Harebrane, you say that according to your hypothesis, nothing made of metal can be beamed by instantaneous kinesis using the machine you made. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Spot on. Exactly correct. In that case, I'd ask you to have a look at this photograph that was taken at the scene. In particular, I'd like you to pay attention to the victim's face. You can clearly see that Mr. Asman is wearing a pair of spectacles with a metal rim. What? Metal? No! Metal can't... That's not... Metal? No! We've already established that the proposed murder weapon, the screwdriver, was found on the stage. However, if your hypothesis is correctly predicted that outcome, it should also predicted that the metal-rimmed spectacles would be found in the same place. Ah! My hypothesis! My hypothesis! Professor Harebrane, this isn't easy for me to say, but your hypothesis is clearly flawed. Ah! Nothing wrong with that, dude. That's just how science do. Order, order, order! Counsel, what is the implication of this? If, on the day in question, the alleged instantaneous kinesis never actually took place, then it's entirely possible that the victim was killed somewhere other than on the stage. And in that case, someone other than the defendant could have been the culprit. But my hypothesis is sound! I proved it that day. The experiment was a success. The experiment was proof of all my work. If I could say something here in my capacity as a fellow of the Royal Society. Yes, juror number 4? Go ahead. As a man of science, there is one thing I simply cannot abide. And that's a fraud who pretends to be a fellow man of science. What? Wait, Great Scott, are you suggesting my science is suspect? It's just been disproved, hasn't it? In front of all of us. In other words, the whole demonstration was a complete nonsense from start to finish. Believe me, my fellow jurors, when I tell you that this man is a heel, a bounder, and a fraud. I say the record of that machine should be stripped down and thoroughly examined. No! Never! The machine's the answer to my entire hypothesis! It's protected by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act! What the devil is that blasted out to about that, eh? Who made such a daft rule? Your boss is. I don't like the way this seems to be going. What's the best way for me to help the professor? I mean, I would prefer to raise an objection here.
Objection!
Professor Harebrane has yet to perfect his invention. That would seem to be the case, yes. But even so, what? Go into such trouble and expense to create a fake machine display in public? He would have absolutely no reason to do such a thing.
Objection!
He had an obvious reason to do exactly that. For the research grant money. What? If the government was foolish enough to have deemed the man's ridiculous notion plausible, he and his conspirators would have received a handsome sum indeed. Conspirators? What would be the value of such a grant? 10 pounds? You're an order of magnitude out, ma'am. 500 pounds. A year. Order! You could live handsome on that much for years. The Society noticed an increase in bogus public demonstrations in the field of science recently. And plenty of scientists argue with each other to get the largest slice of the funding cake. People greeted as plenty motive enough for murder, I assure you. No! I haven't deceived anyone, least of all the government. My hypothesis is sound! The science is sound! Please, you must believe me!
Objection!
No matter how unbelievable this hypothesis may seem to you, ladies and gentlemen, the fact remains that the victim was transported instantly to the Crystal Tower. Which means that the experiment was a success. Ah, Barrack! And therefore, the only person who could possibly have committed this murder is the accused. Ah, Barrack. Where is this heading? I have no idea. My lord, if I may. Yes, Lord Van Zieks. The prosecution would like to summon new witnesses to the stand. New witnesses? What would be the nature of their involvement? They were spectators of the demonstration at the exhibition, who were occupying special seats. Eyewitnesses? Very well. The court grants the prosecution's request. I should very much like to hear from eyewitnesses to the incident. The prosecution's stance is clear. This experiment was no pastiche. The accused killed the financier victim on the public stage before the very eyes of the spectators. Now, my learned friend. Oh, yes? It's time for you to make your own stance clear. There's clearly a flaw in the professor's hypothesis. I can definitely see that. But where does that leave me? We shall take a short recess now, during which time the prosecution will prepare its new witnesses to take the stand. As you wish, my lord. Good. In that case, court is adjourned for 20 minutes.